And Bonds hits one high. Hits it deep. It is out of here. 7:56. Bonds stands alone.
Now Booker with Tucker on him. Throws it up for 8. Shot blocked by Antetokounmpo. What a block from Giannis.
17 seconds from Game 7 or from championship number 6. Jordan, open, Chicago with the lead.
Minute remaining. And they're putting Curry in the pick and roll, trying to get him on Irving. Irving and Curry, one-on-one. Irving puts it up. It's good! Kyrie Irving from downtown!
We're sending it in, Jerome. That's for damn sure.
Yes. What is up, everybody? Welcome to Taproom Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jordan Stacks on Stacks. Joined with my guys, we got AK, Swerving Irvin, Washington. Fellas, no baseball today. All we got is Summer League and WNBA. We played the Lynx earlier. We lost by 40 points.
And that's when I officially retired from WNBA betting.
Oh, how we doing? How's our day going? Irv lost USA money line too. I told him not to play that shit.
Well, you gotta have faith in your boys, man.
That's right.
You know, if he played the draw, plus 250.
That was nice.
We are being brought to you by Tavour. Make sure to go to Tavour.com or download the Tavour app straight to your mobile device. Use promo code TAPROOM for $10 off your first purchase of $25 or more. That's craft beer delivered straight to your front door. You don't even have to leave your seat. What a noble concept. Also, go to our YouTube, at YouTube Taproom Sports Podcast. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. Lock us in. Get notified when we go live. Also, go to twitch.tv/Taproom Sports. Can get us there as well. We appreciate everybody for joining us. This is the Maction Show, the Mid-Atlantic Conference. It's the conference that you see on the weird days on Tuesday and Wednesday. One of the most bet conferences in all of college football because of that. And a lot of people don't do their due diligence in digging into this conference. So we're here to do that for you. We're going to be talking win totals, conference odds, kind of prepare you for the season. So when there is Maction days, you can get down on some action. I know AK loves a bet on here. I am not so sure about it. We'll go back and forth on that. But man, I'm excited for tonight. Before we get into that, I wanted to ask mid-baseball real quick. Mid-MLB season going forward. AK, any thoughts on any futures other than other than anything you played, like the Reds future? Like, is there anything now you would play?
So a couple of people have texted me and asked me that the last couple of days. I have not played anything. I'll be honest. I am kind of just riding out everything that I have. The only thing that I played back in June was the Reds to win the division. Got that number at a nice ticket of 19-1. So where I've seen that at most places, it's plus 125, plus 150 right now. So, hey, great number there. But I've kind of decided just to ride all of my futures out in baseball and just try to keep track there. I need Diamondbacks to keep winning. Hopefully they'll go get some relief pitching at the deadline. And hey, we've seen what we've been expecting all season. The Cardinals announced today they will be sellers at the deadline. So,
I mean, the unkept secret as we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks. Irv, anything from you think people might want to look at going forward for Major League Baseball before we hop into some action?
No, because most of the teams that I thought were going to be in contention are still in contention, and the Rangers don't have much value to win the West or the AL West right now. So,
can I interest either of you in a Toronto Blue Jays to win the AL East plus 750?
If their pitching could get anywhere near back to the way it was like middle of last year, then probably.
Manoah looked good.
So I actually have a ticket on the Blue Jays from the preseason to win the AL East, also to win the American League, and to actually win the World Series. So I'm riding that one out, man. Definitely think you're going to see an uptick in them. Uh, we always talk about, man, I don't like to be on a trendy bet, but I think one of their like live in season win totals is like 88.5 right now, or 89.5, depending on what you're shopping. I've seen a lot of people wanting to take that, and I think that's a decent number, man. But I'm just gonna ride it out, and hopefully, hopefully the Blue Jays come through for me.
Yeah, I'm on. I have the Blue Jays won the World Series 17-1 preseason, which is not looking so good. I also have Josh Young to win AL Rookie of the Year in pocket. I think I got him like 22-1, and that's looking really good. He's now the betting favorite for AL Rookie of the Year. I also have Ellie De La Cruz 32-1. It's gonna take Corbin Carroll to really stumble for Ellie to have a chance, but I'm hoping with like the narrative type voting, you know, what
Nah,
Ellie,
if Ellie stays on the same pace he's at, he gonna win Rookie of the Year.
that's what I'm saying, because everyone's like, oh man, this kid's incredible. So I'm hoping that like the hype just forces writers to vote him NL Rookie of the Year.
Corbin Carroll cooling down and getting hurt is not gonna help things at all. So
Exactly, dude. I thought Corbin Carroll was gonna be out for the year the other night when he swung the bat and immediately grabbed his shoulder, dude.
But then he comes back the next night, hits the walk off hit in extra innings. So, Corbin Carroll's not going to go down without a fight. I promise you that. And that kind of goes back to why we like the Diamondbacks so much. Before the season started, was, man, they're young, hungry dogs. And hey, I like Ellie. I am all for him. I've been yelling for them to call him up all year. I also like Spencer Steer and Matt McClain, and man, that's a young team too. But I think they're a little ahead of where the Diamondbacks were last year. But I think there's still some regression coming for the Reds too. They're going to come back to earth a little bit, unfortunately.
Do you think there's any young teams that kind of made a second half leap last year, like the Diamondbacks did, that we could like look for this year for betting opportunities the second half of the season? Maybe like the Oakland A's, who just announced today they're calling up Zach Neto, who's their third ranked prospect, and Tyler Soderstrom, who's their first ranked prospect.
And UVA graduate Giloff, they're going to play him some too. Of course, Dodgers just drafted his brother, but what's funny about your question, Jordan, is the Diamondbacks actually came out hot last year and kind of cooled off at the beginning of the season. So that's what I'm hoping doesn't happen this year. But I definitely think there's going to be some spots. We always talk about favorites hit. Favorites hit it. It seems like the beginning of the season, and then when there's natural attrition sets in, injuries, people setting people trading people. It's kind of when the value on the dogs in baseball comes after the All-Star break. So,
yep, 100% agree. I also think like market value kind of overvalues certain teams, and you can kind of look to like fade them. I think the Tampa Bay Rays are going to be one of those teams going forward. We're kind of seeing their offense regress back to like what it was last year, where it was like below average. I think we've kind of seen that the last couple of weeks. I also think the Texas Rangers might be a team we want to look to fade in the second half of the year. And I'm not saying go out and fade them every game. I'm just saying like it's good to look at going forward. And I also think a team to buy is your New York Yankees. AK fired their hitting coach, hired Paul Casey. They have one of the best bullpens in baseball. Obviously, you got Garrett Cole. They bring Rodon back. Rodon looked decent his first start. So
Cortez is getting healthy too.
So the Yankees are a team to look at going forward as well.
Anyways, and I've been.
No, go ahead, Kate.
No, I was just gonna say, man, you guys know because I scream it in our group text all the time. But I've been screaming all year about Harrison Bader. I've been on with Friday nights with Jordan talking about how important he is, and he's kind of, man, the glue or the tie that binds, if you will, with that team. And I sent a stat to you guys in our group text the other day. The Yankees have only are like 26-12 with him in the lineup. That's unreal when you look at with him without him in the lineup. So if you don't think hitting matters, man, and somebody in that fifth or sixth spot matters, there's your sign right there. It says it does.
Yep, absolutely. Anyway, sorry for the baseball rant. I just wanted to get those off before we head into the second half, because we'll be on Friday night talking about baseball for Saturday, but we won't be on before then to talk about baseball as we get started on Friday. So definitely stuff to look forward to. Also, follow us on Twitter. Follow AK at AK Sports 90. You can follow Irvin at Swervin Irvin TSP. Follow myself at Jordan Rules TSP. We give out plays on there, talk baseball all the time. So definitely want to do that and tap in Friday nights, 8:15 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 11:15 Eastern Standard Time. Me and AK go through a bunch of games. If AK isn't available, then we usually kick off later with myself and Irv as well. So tap in with those. Anyways, let's talk some college football, baby. We are I think 17 weeks away. No, less than that. We're 7 weeks away from the kickoff. Damn, my math is terrible tonight. I haven't even drank that much. Shouldn't be that bad. So we have the MAC conference. So just like we do every single week, if you're new to the show, we go through every single team, top or bottom to top. So we go the worst projected team to the highest projected team, and deep dive them, win totals, conference odds, and hopefully we get, by the end of the show, we get to the window with some bets that we like for the futures. But if not, hopefully it's something you learn going into the season that you can use for week by week plays. So we're going to kick it off tonight with the Kent State Golden Flashes. 2.5 wins is their projected win total. 15-1, actually plus 15,000, so 150-1 to win the conference. Basically, this team is going to be absolute fucking dog shit. We could probably coast through this one, but AK, what do you think about this team? Obviously, they lose their coach, Sean Taylor, or what's his name? What was his name? Sean
Thomas. I think.
Yep.
Was it Sean Thomas? Or Sean Taylor? One of those fucking. He went to the Colorado Buffaloes as our offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on?
Go ahead.
Well, what's our thoughts on Kent State going in this year? Is returning zero offensive
Kent
starters.
State was actually, if you don't look at their record, if you guys remember, man, they were actually a bet on at some spots last year.
Oh,
I remember the agony of having, I believe it was Oklahoma, and Kent State stuck around in that game, somewhat of Oklahoma's fault last year, and let Kent State cover.
They lost 33-3 and still covered.
Yep. Yeah. But if you go back and watch, look, that game was actually closer than the score says. And then I know they also covered against Georgia. If you guys remember, they had Georgia on the ropes for 3 quarters.
They sure did.
But losing their quarterback, obviously hurts. He went to UCLA. He was kind of the leader of that team. Dante Cephas actually will be a guy that's plays a lot at Penn State this year. He's actually named to watch. We were kind of talking off air. They returned 0 starters on the offensive side of the ball. God, it's hard to do anything in any conference, whether you're in the MAC or the SEC, when you return no starters on offense. So definitely a team that you expect to have some regression. And I'll get into Akron later, but Akron was the 2.5 win team last year coming into it, right? Kent State's kind of that bottom feeder this year, but I don't expect a lot of things out of this team this year.
100%. 100% agree. Irv, what do you think?
I see 1 win on this schedule.
Who?
They might be is this Central?
Central Connecticut. Yeah,
Central Connecticut.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't see them beat nobody.
Yeah, this is a bad team.
I've never seen a scout of a team returning 0 starters on offense.
Not only that, they hired Kenny Burns, who was the running back coach at Minnesota. So
yeah, he was the associate head coach, and if his offense is anything like Minnesota's, they might not win a game.
Well, dude, I love me some PJ Fleck, dude. So I'm not gonna sit here and shit on Minnesota.
No, I'm not shitting on. I'm just saying, Minnesota actually have talent to run the offense that they run.
Right.
He's gonna start from the ground up with 0 experience.
Yeah.
And break it in an entire new system.
Yeah.
And none of those 4 quarterbacks took the lead in the spring, so you got 4 QBs and don't know who the starter gonna be. So.
Yep.
And Jordan, I'll end with this. And if you look at the max stats last year, they averaged 418 yards per game last year, which was good enough for second in the MAC last year. But if you turn around and look at their defense, they were dead last in the MAC last year. They turned around and gave up 435 yards last year. When you take away what you had going for you to a degree last year, your offense, man, it's going to be hard to win a couple games. I'm like Irv. I didn't play this, and I won't play this because I don't like playing season win total unders. But the under 2.5 might be a play here.
Oh yeah, I think it's definitely in play. But I have a rule where I won't play anything under 4.5. Just because you could walk into a couple wins, especially like a team like this, like where Irv said they could play Central Connecticut. That's one win right there. It should be. So I mean, they could upset somebody or two, and it's like boom.
The only other teams they might upset.
Well, Irv, the one thing about the
Maybe.
MAC, dude, is that
I know
some
you gonna get
weird
some
shit
upsets for
happens,
sure.
dude.
The thing about the MAC is you're gonna have 4 or 5 or 6 teams that go 6-7 or 6-6 this year. So
Well, they also
anybody on a Tuesday night can get upset.
AK
Probably would be more than likely to be NIU, Ball State, or Bowling Green.
AK, they also have these, Tuesday night games in November and a flurry of snow, and it's
Exactly.
like something weird happens
After they just played on Thursday the week before.
Yeah.
So they're already on a short spot. They got to travel.
Yeah.
It's just terrible. If you bet simply on spots, you need to stay away from the MAC.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I think too is like, a lot of times, Irv and I handicapped the MAC a lot last year too, and it's like a lot of times it's like you look at a line, right, and you're like, man, we saw this a lot last year, like Ohio versus, I don't know, Western Michigan, right? As I think was one of the games. And Ohio's like a 3.5 point road favorite. And Ohio's a much better team. Like Western Michigan couldn't even throw the ball last year. But then, right when game time starts, it's like a fucking blizzard pops up, dude. And it's like nobody can do anything. And the game is like 3 fumbles, and Western Michigan runs one of them back, and they win the game. You know what I mean? Like that's just how the MAC plays out sometimes.
I think the final score in that game was like 13-6.
It was dude. That was one of the. There was a few MAC games, dude, that were just like, why are we even putting US dollars on this, dude? Why?
Oh, that was bad.
But no, I mean it can be. It's a very profitable conference if you definitely pay attention to it.
Yeah, that was my second worst game of the year. The worst one was that bowl game with UTSA and
and UAB or
UAB,
Troy.
No, it was
Troy.
Troy. Yeah, I was on Troy in that game.
That shit was terrible.
You were on Troy that game. You should have given us all the lotto numbers.
Yeah.
All right, let's move over to.
And the bad part is I had Troy at a bad number because if you guys remember, Troy opened as the favorite, and then the line moved like throughout the week.
Oh, it kept going back and forth, dude. All like up until kickoff, dude. It was going back and forth, back and forth. Like
it went back and forth for.
And the over under was like 69. That shit went under by like 50 points.
Yeah, I had Troy laying like 2.5. And it closed UTSA laying 3.5.
Yep.
So like I'm 5 points like away. Terrible closing number. And then we know what happens. Troy, I think UTSA threw like 3 interceptions in the end zone. So
and Irv and I, we talk about CLV all the time. We were on UTSA. We were on UTSA plus 2.5. It closes minus 3.5. We're sitting there on game day. We're like, oh yeah, we got a great number. We don't even have to win. We just got to cover, bruh. Fuck that game.
And that was one of the ugliest football games I've ever watched in my life, by the way. It was like on a Friday when I was working, and I just like wanted to take my work computer and just kind of shove it through the TV at work. So
yeah, they left like 40 points on the field. That shit was terrible, man.
Oh, if someone had the over in that game, like I would have just stopped watching it.
UTSA had like 4 turnovers inside the red zone, man. All right, let's move to your Akron Zips. AK, we'll let you take this one. Their total's at 3.5, 4 at some spots, but it's plus money at 4. I'm going off BetMGM here. They're 3.5 minus like 140, I think.
I'll let you guys hash this one out a little bit. I'll circle back to it later, but I'm a big believer in Joe Moorhead. What he did at his alma mater. And then he has a sense of knowing what the MAC was. He was the offensive coordinator there back in like the Charlie Fry days. So he kind of has a sense of what it takes to win in the MAC. I do think DJ Irons, he's 6'6", he's a dual threat kid. I think he's going to take a step forward this year. He's always kind of been well, last year he was hurt, but it's always kind of been a little bit of a quarterback competition. But I think they're going to say, hey, he's our guy. We're going to let him go out here and steal the show. Lorenzo Lingard is a name to watch as well. He's a Florida transfer from the SEC. And here's the thing, man. Alex Adams and Daniel George may be two of the better receiving pair in the MAC conference this year. They got to figure out the offensive line. They only returned 2 starters from there, but that's kind of misconstrued because they had a swing tackle that'll start full time this year. So, basically like returning 3 starters. And if you go back and look last year, they lost 6 one-score games, and what I consider a one-score game in college football is 8 points or less. So 6 games like that. Usually a head coach takes that second year leap. You kind of figure out a way to win more of those one-score games. I think Akron's going to be much improved this year, and I'm excited for them.
I think they're going to be improved. Like, being improved from 2 wins isn't that much. I think their offensive line is an issue, and I'm not going to beat around the bush, dude. They lose their best offensive lineman, Anthony Wiggin, who was 3rd team All-MAC. They do return 6 guys with starting experience, but this is an offensive line that allowed the 2nd most sacks in all of FBS last year, and they return all those guys and lose their best guy. I think that is a major, major red flag. They also lose a ton on their defensive line, and I'm the type of person where, like, if I'm going to back a team, I need to know that the trenches are good, dude. I want the defensive line and the offensive line to be good. I think that's the 2 weakest parts of their team, and that's an issue, in my opinion. You might be right, dude. They might win 4 games. I could not put a single dollar on them because I think that those 2 things could become an issue. Because last year they made a jump defensively. They cut their points down from 39.5 to 33.5. But now their defensive line is worse than last year. So now, their secondary is improved for sure. They had the South Carolina transfer. I forget his name off the top of my head. Judson Tallendier. But, dude, you got to get pressure on the quarterback to help your secondary. And I think that this team is going to struggle getting pressure on the ball. And I also think they're going to struggle stopping the run, which could be an issue. They also their schedule does kind of break out for them, but they got to go to Temple, and we talked about Temple earlier this summer, right? We all think Temple is much improved, so that's not an easy game. And then they got to go at Kentucky, at Indiana, which is maybe a winnable game.
I think Indiana's a winnable game, Jordan. I'll be honest with you.
It very well could be. But then they got to go at Central Michigan, much improved team, at Miami of Ohio, at Eastern Michigan. So I'm looking at their schedule, and then they finish off with Ohio. So
here's the thing, though: if they come out of that, they'll beat Morgan State. That's a slam dunk. If you can come out of there and you can either upset Temple or upset Indiana, and you somehow come out of there 2-2, all you got to do is win 2 games in conference. Yeah. Now let's just say worst case scenario, they come out of there 1-3. You go back-to-back home games against Buffalo and Northern Illinois, both winnable games. So let's just say
I'm much higher on Buffalo and Northern Illinois than you.
Both winnable games. I'll counter you with something too. Akron and MAC conference play last year gained their opponents by 44 yards per game. So we're honing in on the defense, which the defense was actually pretty darn good last year. I think their offense is going to be much improved too. I know they lose Jacquet, but I think Alex Adams is going to be one of the best receivers in the conference. But anyways, let's just say you get through that test of time right there with 2 wins. Bowling Green's a winnable game. Kent State, they should take care of business on. That's 4 games right there. They might upset one of Miami, Eastern Michigan, and Ohio and be sitting there and be bowl eligible with 6 games. Now I don't think that. I'm not putting my money on 6 games, but the question is, can they win 3.5 games this year? It absolutely is.
Eastern Michigan hasn't lost a home game in November in, I think, like 4 years.
And I think we're going to be there before then, so I don't even think that's going to matter.
It's on November 14th. That's a tough game, dude. It's a very tough game. Like I said, dude, like, I think 3.5 is the correct number. Because you're right, like, Indiana is a winnable game. They should beat Morgan State. So I mean, if we're looking at the schedule, they're probably favored in 2 games. They're probably favored against Morgan State at home and Kent State at home. That's probably the 2 games they're gonna be favored in, right? So they should win those 2 games. So let's count those as 2 wins. So now we need 2 upsets. What upsets are we taking? Right? Indiana, that's 1, and then where? At Bowling Green?
I think they could beat Bowling Green.
Because I don't think there's any chance they go into Eastern Michigan on November 14th and win that game. That's 6 days after they play Miami. Miami's a tough physical team.
But here's the thing about the MAC too.
It's crazy.
There's
I know.
so many,
we could get 2 or 3 upsets.
There's so many teams that come into the season. I've seen MAC win totals be set at 9.5, and the team finishes 7-6.
Oh, I mean the team
6 and 7.
What was last year? The team that was projected to finish last was it was Eastern Michigan, and they won the conference.
Yep.
So that's just how it goes. But yeah, I mean, dude, I agree with you. I like DJ Irons, dude. I just think the trenches on this team are so bad. Or I shouldn't even say so bad. I just don't know. Like, I don't know what they're going to be. Because last year they were second in FBS in sacks allowed. And they lost their best offensive lineman and didn't replace him. So, other than, these guys maybe getting better, but that's no guarantee, right?
And so that number is a little misconstrued too, because DJ Irons was hurt some towards the middle of last year. And so DJ Irons is a dual threat guy that's going to escape the pocket, make plays, and here's the thing, but their backup quarterback, he's a old school pro style, 3-step drop, 5-step drop, 7-step drop kind of guy. He took a lot of those sacks too. So that number is a little misconstrued because DJ Irons wasn't playing. And it's such a contrasting style that I think this offense only works when DJ Irons is at quarterback. It's not built for somebody that's going to try to step back there and, throw the ball, 5-step drops and go through a progression. I think it's a, more suited. And really this conference is, when you talk about playing off schedule, this conference is played off schedule.
Yeah. I mean, Joe Moorhead, obviously, going back to his days at where he's been, Florida and stuff, he wants dual threat quarterbacks, right? So
yep.
I definitely think DJ Irons is the quarterback. I don't have the same conviction as you, and God bless you for having that conviction on Akron over 3.5. I personally, I can't get there. And you could very well be right. AK, they could win 6 games, and I wouldn't be shocked. I would not be shocked. But they could also win 2 games, and I wouldn't be shocked. That's where I'm at with Akron. What do you think, Irv? You haven't chimed in yet on Akron.
Off coaching acumen alone, they should win more than 2.5 games. But we gotta, if he can get anything out of that QB position, and if that defense could stay at anywhere near the level they was last year, then I would bet this over easy. Their schedule isn't as hard as I thought it would. Isn't as hard as I thought it was. Looking more at it from face value, but I like Joe Moorhead, man. He's a damn good coach, great offensive mind. He just needs some talent because he's going to maximize what the talent that he has, and he's got a diamond in the rough with that quarterback. Dude can get better at passing.
The thing is with this conference, Irv, I think there's a handful of coaches that get the best out of the talent that they have in this conference.
Yeah, but you got to look at teams like NIU, Central Michigan, Bowling Green, Miami of Ohio. Can we honestly sit here and say that any of those teams are on the come up?
Central Michigan is.
Central Michigan, maybe. But
Central Michigan probably has the best coach in this entire conference, too.
Yeah, but they got a lot of issues on defense, though.
They'll be a lot better than last year. Promise you that.
They're probably going to be a lot better than Akron, but I can see Akron going over that win total pretty easy.
We'll see.
Of course, they're non-conference. They're probably they probably could beat Temple, maybe Morgan State for sure, but I don't think they beat UK. Indiana is a toss-up. We got to see what they're working with. They're a wild card. I don't really think that's not a game you just look at as an automatic L for Akron. So,
but their Temple's not either.
Yeah. So, their first 2 games in the MAC is going to determine a lot because they got Buffalo and NIU. Who's a lot of people are higher on both these teams, honestly. So we're gonna see.
Well, NIU's just getting healthy. Last year talk about injuries, dude. NIU, we'll get to them soon, but they were the most throttled team with injuries all year last year. I'm talking from quarterback down to the kicker, dude. Like they just had injuries all over, dude.
Yeah, definitely. It was pretty bad.
All right, let's talk about Western Michigan, who's also at 3.5. Now this is an interesting team. Lance Taylor takes over first year. They fired what was the coach they had before that? His name's slipping my mind.
I
I can't remember either.
Lester. Lester, what's his first name? Anyways, Lester. He was their head coach before. He's the guy that had Sky Moore. He never had a losing season until last year, and they fired him, dude. So that sets the expectation for Western Michigan here, basically. So with that being said, AK, what's your thoughts on Western Michigan here?
That's kind of a team that, like you mentioned, man, they've kind of been one of the upper echelon teams in this conference for a while. Hayden Wolf's an interesting guy. I know him from his days at ODU.
Yep.
I was never sold on him.
Yep.
At ODU. So, I think there's still an open competition in the quarterback room there. I thought some of those ODU teams underperformed because of how good their defense was, but their offense just struggled to move the ball and score. I'm curious to see that. Their best player last year, Sean Taylor, one of the bright spots, actually transferred to that school you guys were talking about earlier, Minnesota. So I'm not expecting a lot from here. Really got to figure out the quarterback room, and it starts there. So
I agree. When you talk about Hayden Wolf and Old Dominion, I just go back to that Virginia Tech game last year, and he was like 9 for 30 throwing the ball, dude.
They still won.
And they won, dude.
Thank God, because that defense was so good.
Yep.
And their special teams was actually really good last year. But Hayden Wolf, man, I've never been sold on that kid.
Yeah, I'm not high on him either at all. I think Western Michigan, like, it's funny to me they fire Lester because of expectations. They bring in Lance Taylor, who he was the running back coach at Stanford, and then he was the wide receiver coach for Carolina. And then he was the running back coach at North Dakota, and then the offensive coordinator at Louisville last year. And you know my thoughts on Louisville. I've been very vocal about how dog shit Scott Satterfield and Louisville were last year. So I'm not sure this is the right guy for the job if you just fired your most winningest head coach, had one losing season. I think expectations are going to be through the roof, and I think that this is going to be a tough task here for Western Michigan.
The nice thing about Western Michigan, though, Jordan, they do. They had a good defense last year. I know they kept
but they lost their best defensive player.
Yep. So I think their defense only returns 2 starters. You look to build off of that, man. But they've got to figure out the quarterback room too before you can go anywhere.
Yep. I mean, they lost their 2 best defensive players. They lost one in the NFL. They lost Andre Carter, who was second team All MAC. Just This team's gonna struggle, man. I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna say it. I like the under in this. I'm not gonna play it because of my rule. I don't play anything under 4.5. But this team might be worse than Kent State. I'm dead ass serious, dude.
Nah,
bro, I'm serious, bro. They lost.
Kent State bad.
They lost their whole defense basically. They lost their 2 best defensive players.
But I would say it's easier to replace defense than it is your whole offense.
Sure, but I mean, like, dude, bro, this.
You gotta think. You could get transfers. You could probably coach up some guys that was second string. But if you lose your whole entire starting offense.
Well, they lost their 2 top rushers last year. AK mentioned Sean Taylor, rushed for over 1,000 yards. They transferred in Keyshawn King from Virginia Tech, but a very inexperienced unit there. And then they returned 4 of their top 5 receivers, and they get Austin Hentz back, who missed the last 2 years to injury, but. Still, man, like AK said, their quarterback room is a little up in the air. We don't know. And then you lose your bright spot of your whole team last year, which was your defense. You lose the 2 best guys on there, and you bring in a new coach. Best of luck, is what I say.
Yeah, but I don't see them being Kent State yet, though.
They could be. All right, let's move over to Bowling Green. 4.5 wins here. What do you guys think about the good old Bowling Green Falcons, who actually won me quite a bit of money last year?
Carson Steele.
No, that's Ball State.
Ball State.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Or Bowling Green.
Bowling Green, honestly, it's probably a wait and see approach with them. They do return a little bit more than what most teams do in the MAC, but honestly, they could be one of your most disappointing teams from last year, and they could probably end up being one of the more disappointing teams this year too. Honestly, because we got the defense is definitely gonna be a question mark. Like, oh man, the way they ended the season, I wasn't too high on. They got blown up by Ohio, then they lost their bowl game to New Mexico State.
Good New Mexico.
Actually, I
State
love
team.
New Mexico State beating them in that bowl game. I know we talked about that earlier, but
Yeah.
no, actually, man, to Jordan's point earlier, when you talk about offensive line, and I know the camaraderie and things like that, when you're returning offensive line is important in college football. And I know it's a little bit harder now with the transfer portal, but they'll have the most experienced offensive line in the conference next year, returning 4 starters on the offensive line. But I just never was sold on Matt McDonald last year, so I haven't figured out if it's going to be him or the Indiana transfer kid yet.
No, McDonald's gone. McDonald is gone.
So McDonald is gone. Okay, I did not know that.
It's
Did
Connor.
he transfer?
No, bro, he was a senior last year.
Oh, he's okay. I didn't. I forgot that. Okay, so it probably will be the Indiana transfer kid then.
Connor Basil.
They got to figure him out. But name to watch: Terrion Stewart, running back, be one of the better running backs in the MAC conference. So I agree with Irv, man. I'm waiting to see kind of what we get with Bowling Green.
They returned their top 6 rushers from last year, which is huge as well. And like you said, they returned 75 career starts on their offensive line. Plus, they get transfer Hunter Dale from Iowa State, Armand Bethea from Arizona State, who started there last year, and they get a dude from Tulsa. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name because I'm going to butcher the shit out of it, dude. So they get 3 guys on top of the experience that they already returned on their offensive line. So I definitely think their offense is going to be more improved this year. Now, the issue is their defense. They return only 1 starter on their defensive line. And this was a defensive line that was really good last year. It was arguably the best defensive line in the MAC last year. And then they returned Darren Anders. He was first team all MAC last year, linebacker. So that's a plus. And they transfer in Davion Mayo from Memphis, which could be beneficial. And they also get Devon Ferguson back at cornerback. He missed all of last year. This is an NFL prospect at cornerback as well. So I actually like Bowling Green over 4.5. I think this is going to be a much better team. I don't love Scott Loeffler, the head coach, because I mean he's been better of late, but I think I don't think he's met expectations as often. Like I thought Bowling Green's a much better team than 6 and 7 last year. I mean they hung tough with UCLA at UCLA, right? And then they kind of just like faltered in the middle of MAC play and like kind of played down to their opponents all the time. And Matt McDonald threw a ton of fucking interceptions. So, I mean, that's like, it's hard to really judge on that. But
I remember Bowling Green. I can't remember the game. I could go back and look. We were on them. It's like a Wednesday game. And they're getting like, I mean, I think they were favored actually by like 4.5 points. And they would just drop the ball down, get the ball at like the 20-yard line. Instead of trying to punch it in or something, Matt McDonald like throws a fade route and just gets picked off. And it was just so frustrating to watch. And that kind of summed up their season last year.
Yep, 100% agree. And like if Basilak can, kind of not turn the ball over as much, I think it will be beneficial and they'll probably be better. But we got to see how this defense does because I mean this defense honestly it wasn't great last year. They gave up 32.7 points per game, but it was one of the best defensive lines in this conference. Surprisingly, they led the defense. They led the MAC in sacks, dude, and they still gave up 32.7 points per game.
They were and gave up 420 yards per game, 10th in the MAC last year.
Yeah, are we talking MAC play? Because I know they UCLA put up quite a bit of yards on them, and Marshall, Mississippi State beat them 45-14. Buffalo dog walked them too. That was another one where fucking Snyder just fucking was thrashing them. But again, they lost what's his face? They lost Devon Ferguson last year. He was an NFL caliber cornerback. They lost him for the whole entire year last year. You get him back this year. So that's very beneficial for a team like this. I like Bowling Green over 4.5, man. Look at their schedule. Like, at Liberty, bro, Liberty's going to have a down year, right? They're not going to be as good as last year. That's a winnable game. Will they win? Maybe, maybe not. Eastern Illinois, they should win. At Michigan, chalk that up as a fucking L. Ohio, they get them at home this year. That's their homecoming game, too, by the way. September 23rd, Ohio. And then they go at Georgia Tech. That's a pretty winnable game, dude. At Georgia Tech. At Miami, Ohio. At Buffalo. That's a tough stretch. 3 back-to-back-to-back road games. And I think Buffalo is going to be really good this year as well. Then they get Akron at home. They'll dog walk them.
I can't wait to circle back to the show one day.
Then they get Ball State at home, at Kent State. So, I mean, they could very well go, like, in that stretch right there. They could pull off 4 or 5 wins, dude. Then they get Toledo at home. You know, maybe they pull an upset there. It's a Tuesday night game, too. You never know what happens on those Tuesday night games, baby. They're crazy. And then they go at Western Michigan, who's dog water, dude. I mean, I love the over 4.5 for Bowling Green here. Bowling Green Falcons.
Either way, I wouldn't knock you if you do. I wouldn't knock you if you don't. But if they end the season, if they begin the season anyway, any way, shape, or form, or fashion the way they ended last season, it could be all bad.
Well, I mean, they were kind of just up and down all year last year. It was all bad. All right, let's move on to Ball State. The Cardinals, 5.5 wins. Head coach, the Fighting Mike News. What do you like here? Or what's your thoughts on Ball State here, AK? Carson Steele.
Yeah, man. I'm sorry. Go ahead. You go ahead and break this one down.
They lost Carson Steele, man. That's all I'm gonna start right there.
Yeah, but they added Marquez Cooper. He might be better.
I don't know, man. Carson Steele. I don't. You know, you bring him up, and I don't want to give him his credit, but that dude was a damn good running back. But
yep.
I told you, but you were like, no, he's white.
Yeah, only I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Only white running back I respect is Christian McCaffrey.
What about the great Sonny Bird from USC?
What about Toby Gerhart?
Toby Gerhart was a power back. Those like a dime a dozen with white guys. You know,
Peyton Hillis,
Mike Allstott.
Christian McCaffrey is a unicorn. You know, like you look at him and be like, damn, he white. Like,
hey, dead ass though, AK. When Carson Steele hit the portal, I was like, bro, we should go get it. Like, USC needs to go get Carson Steele. And Irv's like, nah, dude, he's white. Like, we're not getting no white running back. I was like, bro,
and
Carson.
then he goes to your.
Then he goes to UCLA, dude.
Yeah, so that's fine. He fits right in at UCLA. When the last time USC had a white running back?
Sonny Bird, baby, 2000. The great
Was
Sonny
he
Bird.
Starter?
Yeah, he averaged like 2.3 yards per carry. That was Pete Carroll's first year, dude.
That's the last time we had a white running back, and you see what ain't happened since.
Yeah, he was awful, dude. But it was funny, dude. It was funny because he would get like 25 carries a game. He'd have like fucking 60 yards, dude.
Or Petro Papadakis, that dude was he was terrible.
Petro, dude.
But Carson Steele earned my respect. But honestly, like I said, Marquez Cooper might be better. The only thing with Ball State, man, is can they play some damn defense? That's gonna be the only question.
Yeah.
They games are you love their overs because it's nothing but it's shootouts. The only thing that stops their games from going over maybe could be the weather. But
I mean,
they can play any type of defense. I think they'll be all right.
They only gave up 398 yards per game, only 26.9 points per game, which was an increase over 2021. They were actually one of the better defensive teams. I think the problem
398 yards a game, that's a lot.
I think the problem with Ball State last year is they didn't have a quarterback.
And I think Lane Hatcher is a good quarterback. You know, I remember him at Arkansas State. For 3 years. Lane Hatcher, that the success of their team next year will depend on his shoulders, and also too, like Irv said, they got to figure it out on defense. I mean, they pretty much got to replace their whole start and secondary from last year. But another good offensive line. With some continuity up front there. I think Lane Hatcher is going to be a pretty decent quarterback. He put up some crazy numbers at Arkansas State, if you guys remember,
and Texas State too.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. He was quarterback Texas State last year. Yeah. Yep.
So I AK and I are on the same wavelength here. like I was gonna mention they're losing their starting DBs, but they also return basically their entire front seven, which will benefit that back end. It'll help them a lot because this was a good defensive line last year. And then Clayton Cole, second team All MAC linebacker, led the team in tackles. They get him back as well. They returned 3 starters on their offensive line, including second team All MAC center Ethan Crow and Corey Stewart, who was third team All MAC. They returned 2 of the best starting linemen in this conference, right? They lose 4 of their top wide receivers, which I think really hurts them. But they do bring in a ton of transfers, and I don't know what they're going to get out of those transfers. They're getting transfers from Colorado, so that's dog water. But they do get a couple transfers from Wake Forest as well. So we'll see what happens. I think Marquez Cooper, though, I'm not gonna front with you guys, dude. I think Marquez Cooper is better than Carson Steele. I think Carson Steele is a harder runner. He runs behind his pads more, but Marquez Cooper is electric, man. So I actually
also too, man. I know Jordan, you mentioned about them losing a couple receivers, but they're probably gonna have the best tight end in the MAC. Actually, if you look preseason,
bingo,
all
Brady
MAC,
Hunt.
Brady Hunt. Yep.
Yes, sir. Good call, AK. I actually like Ball State. I think they're going to be much improved. Mike New's done a great job here. If you look at his history here, they beat my San Jose State Spartans in a bowl game in 2020, which hurt my soul, especially because this girl that works for me went to Ball State, so it was like hurt my soul even more. But nah, man, I kind of like them. I think playing their overs a little tough because they start with Kentucky and Georgia. So they're going 0-2 to start off. And then how much do they lose from those 2 games in injuries is the biggest question for me, which makes this tough to play as far as over-under. But then they get Indiana State, Georgia Southern, so they should start 2-2 right off the bat. At Western Michigan, that's a tough game, or they should win that game because Western Michigan's bad. But then they go to Eastern Michigan. Eastern Michigan's a good team, well-coached. Then they have Toledo at home, Central Michigan at home. I mean, bro, they could easily start this year like 3-6. They just have a tough schedule, man, which makes playing this.
That's another reason why I don't really want to bet that over because their schedule is pretty damn tough.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like
most of the MAC, 80% of the MAC got a pretty cake out of conference. But they're gonna make their budget this year playing Kentucky and Georgia first 2 games.
I also think it improves your team because once you get in conference play, it's like, bro, we just played Georgia. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but that could be.
Kent State
we
had
played
Georgia
and lost 62-7. That might not be.
If you guys remember, Kent State was up by, I want to say,
yeah, they were leading into the third quarter.
Points. Yeah, 12 or 14 points, and they're actually driving and gonna score again, and they end up getting it was either a strip sack or a running back fumble. I can't remember. There was a fumble though. Georgia runs it back, makes it a 1-score game, and never look back after that. But if Kent State goes down there and scores right there, Kent State may beat Georgia last year.
That's true. And what team was supposed to beat Notre Dame, but they scored a touchdown instead of kicking a field goal?
Last year?
Yeah, last year. It was a MAC team.
Can't remember that.
Was it Akron?
Oh, I think it was Marshall, and not from the MAC, but
yeah,
no, Marshall beat them.
That's right, Marshall did
won.
beat them. Yeah, I can't remember.
Let me see. It was a MAC team. Let me go look at it. Look it up.
It wasn't Eastern Michigan.
No,
definitely wasn't Northern Illinois. Was it Toledo? Nah, Toledo. Yeah, it was Toledo.
It was Toledo.
It was Toledo, dude. Because Toledo played Notre Dame and fucking Ohio. No, it wasn't Toledo. They played Ohio State. They got fucking dog walked.
Yeah, they played Ohio State and got their asses handed to them.
I remember because I played Toledo like plus 35, and that was fucking atrocious. I don't know who you're talking about, Herb. While there's looking up,
damn, no, it wasn't a MAC team. It was somebody else. My bad. It was Navy. They should have won.
That's right. You're right. Yeah, Navy kicks a field goal, gonna play defense. It doesn't try to punch it in.
Yeah, the quarterback punched it in. He left him too much time on the clock, and they went to score.
Yeah, I remember that now. Yeah.
All right, let's move over to Central Michigan, also at 5.5 wins here. Should I start off Central Michigan since I like them?
I was gonna say, I think you just need to jam this one, Jordan.
All right. So Central Michigan, last year they were 4-8. Their head coach Jim McElwain, I think, is probably the best coach in this conference. I mean, we could debate it all day, but he's a hell of a fucking coach in my opinion. He was a head coach at Florida before here. Last year they had a tough year, man. They had a lot of injuries. They had a QB carousel due to injuries. So they had Jace Bauer playing quarterback. They had Burt Emanuel, who was actually really good. He rushed for 556 yards, and he only started one game.
His arm, his passing has to improve a lot.
It does, but like he could run the ball.
Yeah, you don't pay quarterbacks to run the ball though.
This was a team that was just beat up by injuries, man. So I think that on top of everything kind of helps them. They returned Marion Lukes, who averaged 7 yards per carry at running back last year, and Miles Bailey, who averaged 5.5 yards per carry. Central Michigan, if you all remember, they usually always have the best offensive line in this conference. Like, that's what they're known for, is their offensive line. Last year, they were a little banged up on their offensive line, and they also lost 3 NFL players the year before on their offensive line, which is really tough to replace, right? So this year, they returned 69 total starts, and they should be better. They do lose their first-team All-MAC center in James Kimbrough, but they had a lot of underclassmen starting last year. This year, they're much more experienced. They have the experience now, so I think they're going to be a little bit better. And then their defense, they lose Thomas Incoom, but they return 3 starters on their defensive line. They return all 3 starters in their linebacker unit. This should be one of the best linebacking units in the MAC. And they return 3 starting DBs, including first-team All-MAC cornerback Dante Kent, who's a future NFL player. He might be the best cornerback in this conference. I think this is going to be a very good team. If they can figure out the quarterback spot, I think this could be a very dangerous team. And Jim McElwain usually he figures it out, dude. He figures out the quarterback spot. If Jace Bauer is the guy, he's a sophomore coming into this year. If Burt Emanuel figures it out, I think this team could be very dangerous because this team can run the ball, and I think that's what they're going to focus on. I think they're going to take the air out of the ball. And remember, the new rules in college football, the clock doesn't reset after a first down anymore, right? This benefits a team like this. They are going to want to run the ball, take the air out, and control the clock. And I think this is going to be a much improved team, dude. I like Central.
Yeah, but you can only run the ball so much unless your defense is very, very, very damn good. You got to have a passing game to keep defenses.
Their defense only allowed 28 points per game.
I was going to say their defense was one of the best in the MAC last year.
Yeah. Is it going to be one of the best this year?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't lose a ton. They're returning 9 defensive starters.
Okay, so basically you want them to run the Stanford offense and win the MAC.
Yeah.
So Jordan, to your point, it's something that I always bring up and add salt to my wounds. But I remember, oh my gosh, I can't remember his last name was Richardson. There was a quarterback, Daniel Richardson. He transferred to Florida Atlantic. They come in with high expectations last year. I can't remember, but I think Richardson gets hurt earlier in the season. And then so I'm on that freaking game against Buffalo near the end of the season, and Richardson comes in. I can't remember if he gets re-hurt or he struggles. I can't remember exactly what happened. Burt Emanuel comes in and runs for fucking 300 yards and just ran over. They had never seen him before. They never were expecting for him. They thought Daniel Richardson was going to play. And that's when I was like, holy crap, man, this line is actually good. That line just pushed Buffalo around. And Burt Emanuel on I can't remember, it's probably a Tuesday or Wednesday night. He's just running around the edge and, no one's catching him. So my point of that is Burt Emanuel, high ceiling. I just don't know what his floor is. To Irv's point, he's got to figure out how to throw the ball. I agree, man. I think Central Michigan's going to be a lot better this year. I think you're all over it, man.
I think to your point of being a better passer, though, he only attempted 8 passes last year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's the reason why.
I think the reason why is because he was never meant to play. You know what I mean?
Because his legs was working so damn good. It's basically like Khalil Tate when he was at Arizona.
But
No,
The
if you
only
guys
time he
remember,
did well was to throw
yeah,
it deep.
Daniel Richardson was supposed to be like the man in the MAC. It actually kind of was during the COVID year, I guess it
yep,
was. Yeah, or no, maybe
I
2021,
think
year
it's
after the
21.
COVID
Yeah,
year. You know, he comes in with all this. Oklahoma State, I think they played the first game of the year last season. That was a trendy pick. I
yeah.
think they go up if I remember correctly,
They
if
covered,
my memory served. Yeah, they covered at the end. Yeah, that's right. They backdoor covered it because
backdoored.
they started scoring touchdowns. Yeah. I remember this. It's funny how we talk through things, and I remember games. But yeah, man, Bertie Manuel, it's kind of going to rest on his shoulders. I think that defense is going to be good again this year. I think Bertie Manuel's got to figure it out. I think it is him over Chase Bauer, by the way.
I agree. I definitely think it's him, and they have a very favorable schedule, dude. They go to Michigan State. I don't think Michigan State's that good, to be honest. Like that's a winnable game to start at Michigan State. Then they got New Hampshire at Notre Dame. That's a tough game playing at South Bend. At South Alabama, another tough game.
Yep.
And then they get Eastern Michigan at home, at Buffalo, Akron, at Ball State, Northern Illinois at home, at Western Michigan, at Ohio, Toledo. I mean, they got a tough schedule, but man, this team, the defense is going to be improved because they're returning 9 starters. They're just getting more experienced. They were one of the best defenses in the MAC last year. If they can get anything, if Bert Emanuel takes a step, this could be a team contending for the MAC. It really depends on that. At 5.5 wins, I mean, I like Central Michigan. I haven't got to the window, but I like this team, dude. I really like the Chippewas.
And if they let you down, they're gonna be the most complete dog shit team walking the face of the earth.
Damn right.
Yeah. Before we move on, speaking of the defense, though, Jordan, to your point, Dante Kent, probably the best cornerback in the MAC. So,
Bro, I already said that.
oh, sorry, I missed that. Sorry, I was too busy going down memory lane of Daniel Richardson.
I said, yeah, he was first team All MAC last year. He's definitely a future NFL player for sure. Damn, AK.
See? Yeah, Daniel Richardson, man. We kind of talked about him, Florida Atlantic.
Yep. Good old what's his face? God damn, dude. Lane Kiffin.
Yep.
Coached him.
That's it.
He recruited him. All right, let's move over to Northern Illinois, 5.5, the NIU Huskies. Another team I like here. What do you guys think about NIU? And I like NIU more so because they were the most injured team last year. There's no way they could go through that again, dude.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Irv.
Like Jordan said, if this team can stay relatively healthy, I expect a huge improvement. They are one of the better teams in the MAC. They've been for the better part of the last decade. The only question marks is the QB position.
They got a QB. He just got to stay healthy. Rocky Lombardi.
Yeah, he got to stay healthy, but
he hasn't been able to stay healthy for 2 years, I feel like.
Yeah, if the QB can't stay healthy, then he's a question mark to me. I don't know. The defense should be better. I know they got a pretty good recruiting class, got some decent transfers. System didn't change. Coaching turnover could always be a big help if they're actually good coaches. So I feel like Northern Illinois can make a jump this year with the healthy QB.
What do you think? AK?
Yeah, I'm not. I'm probably not as high as most people on Northern Illinois, so I don't have too much of an opinion on them. They got to stay healthy. I know kind of the topic of these shows have been camaraderie and on the offensive line, so they do pretty much keep most of their offensive line.
The most experienced offensive line in this
in the MAC. Yep. I agree though, man. I think this is a team that I'm kind of sitting back and waiting and seeing what happens.
Yeah, I think it's tough to play, but I mean they have a very favorable schedule at Boston College, Southern Illinois, at Nebraska, Tulsa, at Toledo, at Akron, Ohio, Eastern Michigan, both those at home, at Central Michigan, Ball State, Western Michigan, at Kent State. They got a very, very favorable schedule.
Yeah, I just think the pressure's on, man. Kind of like Irv said, that team, It's kind of been top, of the MAC for 10 years now since what was it, Jordan Lynch?
Yep.
Those days. Yeah, man, that was monster. I loved watching him back in the day. I was hoping he would work out in the NFL as a running back, but ever since those days, man, they've kind of set the bar high. So pressure's on this year, and we've seen that go both ways before.
Yeah, and this team, like I said, they had a lot of injuries last year. They lost their top three cornerbacks due to injury last year, and now they get those guys back. Plus, they get Cameron Dabney from Kansas and Deron Gilbert from Lafayette. So they should be more improved there. They also added a lot of transfers to both a defensive line and their linebacking unit. So while they did lose some guys, like they added experience, which I think is very important. And then obviously, they returned their first team all MAC conference right tackle Nolan Potter. He's a future NFL player. 117 career starts, returned to their offensive line. This team, like, dude, you look at them, like, they lost Trayvon Rudolph last year to injury. They get him back. Rocky Lombardi was hurt. They get him back. And you can say what you want about Rocky Lombardi, but he's a fucking leader, dude. Like, he wins, bro. Like, he wins.
Yeah, but I think if he has another rough year, that seat might get a little hot.
But he didn't have a rough year last year. He was just hurt.
Yeah, but fans and alumni don't always see it that way, and boosters.
To your point, Jordan, they probably have one of the best defensive lines in the MAC as well. Devontae O'Malley, James Esther, 2 preseason All MAC first team guys.
Yep.
It's just one of those things, man. When you're talking about one player coming back from injury, we can kind of sit here and make a judgment on it, if you will. But when you're talking about multiple guys having to bounce back from injury, and if I'm placing my whole wager on multiple guys coming back healthy from injury, it's just hard to say one way or the other.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's tough to like sit there and be like, okay, like, do we expect all these guys to come back the exact same as they were? I don't know.
100%.
But now you're right. All right, let's move over to the Buffalo Bulls. Their win total 6.5. What do you guys think about Buffalo here?
Go ahead, Swerve.
Another wild card, man. It's like the MAC is like
that's the whole MAC conference, bro.
No, it's like you got like 2-3 teams that going to be at the top or going to be contenders.
Hey, it's like AK said. There's a handful of teams that could go 6-6 in this conference.
Exactly, and then you got these teams that had a better year than they had last year that you expect to be better this year, and they could just regress and just be terrible. But I think Buffalo is most people's surprise team this year. They do return a good amount of talent. Was it them that lost? I think didn't they lose a top 3 receivers?
Yep.
Was that them?
Yep.
Yeah.
They lost a top 3 receivers.
Their only returning receiver had 170 yards last year.
Yeah, that could be a problem. I know they brought in a bunch of JUCO and a bunch of transfers.
Yep.
Hopefully those guys can hit the ground running and they can find some type of flow and some type of rapport with the QB immediately. If they could do that, I think they're gonna be pretty decent this year. Now, one thing Buffalo cannot do, they can't let a quarterback run for goddamn 300 yards on them again, no matter who it is. So
thanks, Irv. Yeah, appreciate it.
Sure of that damn. I didn't even know that. Sure of that damn run defense, man. If they do that, I think Buffalo gonna be all right. But they are replacing a lot on the outside. And if you're not a good explosive team, well, you gotta have at least one explosive guy that could stretch the defense, make them respect them. You not even game plan, get them just know that this dude could get behind us. If they can have one of those along with their run game and their quarterback, I think Buffalo can be decent.
So here's the thing: when we're talking about Akron, we're talking about a team that lost 6 games by 1 score less last year.
Yep.
There's some positive regression, right? We always talk about this in baseball, but it happens in all sports. So we're talking about some positive regression. You lose 6 1 score games, you probably win 2 of those the next year just by natural attrition, right? Kind of the opposite with Buffalo. They're winning these games, one score games last year, 26 takeaways, 26 positive.
They only
That's
won.
going to fall
Hold on,
back a
hold
little
on.
bit.
AK, they only won 2 games by 1 score or less last year.
I have it 4 in my notes.
They beat Miami of Ohio 24-20, and they beat Toledo 34-27. Oh, and Akron 23-22. So 3 wins. All the others they either blew out or they got blown out.
Okay, but still, when you're fighting one score games, I think there's a little nutrition. I do like Snyder, as kind of Jordan talked about a little bit before. But here's a team that I'm just not ready to buy yet.
I think this is a much improved team, man. I think getting Cole Snyder back, first quarterback in Buffalo history to throw for over 3,000 yards in a season. He had 18 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. He does lose his top 3 wide receivers, which is a concern. So it's kind of like something that I do agree that, like, buying in on them to go over is a little tough because of that. But maybe he made those guys, you know what I mean? Maybe he was the reason why those guys were as productive as they were. They do return their top offensive lineman, third-team All-MAC, Gabe Wallace, who's their right guard. And then they return 2 redshirt freshmen starting linemen from last year, so much more experience this year. They return all 4 defensive linemen they return 4 defensive linemen with 7+ starts last year. And they get Kyler Lang back, who was out for the year last year. Plus they return Damon Williams, who's third-team All-MAC last year on the defensive line. I think this team is going to be much improved, man. They return their first-team All-MAC safety, Marcus Fuqua, and they return both starting cornerbacks. I think this team is going to be better, man. Like, I don't know. Buffalo just produces good teams. Leopold was here earlier. He kind of set the expectation. I think they're going to kind of continue it forward. I like Buffalo, man. I like this team. I think their schedules, they do have a pretty tough schedule, man. I'm not going to lie. Got to go to Wisconsin, which is a little difficult.
Yep.
Then they got at Toledo, at Miami, but they get Eastern Michigan at home. They get Ohio at home. They get Bowling Green at home. They get CMU at home. Bro.
Hey, Jordan, in my notes last year, I was counting the Georgia Southern Bowl game as a 1-score win.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my bad.
23-21.
I didn't have them in.
But anyways, doesn't matter. You're right, man. Starting off on the road against Wisconsin, they got to play the Toledo. They got to play Ohio, so they don't get to dip and dodge them with any crossover because they're in the same division. They got to play Central Michigan, which we kind of all agree they're going to be a lot better.
But they get them at home.
They got to go to my Akron Zips. Be a tough game. And hey, going to Louisiana Lafayette. Well, I know they call it Louisiana now. That's never a gimme either. So
nope. So to Akron, they're gonna be like a 7-point favorite in that game. AK.
I'll probably be on Akron.
Oh man, I kind of like Buffalo, dude. I might get to the window on them. So they're 5.5 win total, right? They have the 3rd best odds to win this conference. So Toledo's the favorite, obviously. Ohio's 2nd betting favorite. Buffalo's 3rd to win the conference. So the market is high on Buffalo as your boy. Now I'm not gonna go to the window with Buffalo 8-1 to win this conference. I don't think that's not good enough odds for me. But I do think that this is a good team that definitely has a chance to win this conference, without a doubt.
And by the way, Jordan, there's still some 6s out there.
What did we say they were at? 6.5?
6.5, yeah, which is the predominant number. But Caesar Sportsbook has 6 at only -130. Yeah, a couple other places have like -140 over 6s. So there's still some 6s out there.
Because I think this team is better than Miami, which we're going to talk about next. Should we talk about them right now?
Let's do it.
All right, 6.5 is the win total. I mean, you look at their schedule, bro. Like, all right. Miami Redhawks over 6.5. Chuck Martin's their head coach. This is his 10th year. Obviously, I mentioned earlier they're getting Brett Gabbert back. Miami's been a team that has actually won me some money over the last couple of years, so I do respect them. But what's your guys' thoughts here? They do return a lot of their defense. They return a lot of their offense.
Defense
too.
was defense was a kind of a buying point for them last year. Only allowed 22.6 points per game.
Yes, sir.
They were third in the MAC in yards allowed per game. So defense was stout last year. I know they had a couple offensive linemen transfer outs. They got to replenish a couple of those guys. You know, Miami's one of those that I've been doing a lot of reading about the MAC and getting prepared and things like that. And a lot of people think Miami wins the MAC this year. That's kind of the trendy pick, if you will.
No, thank you. Can't get there.
Me neither. What do you think, Er?
I don't know.
He said, I don't know.
It's hard, man. Researching them, looking at them, they could easily compete for the MAC, or they could go 4-8.
So here's the interesting thing too, Jordan. When you're talking about shopping for numbers, this number is 6.5 at almost every book, right?
Yep.
A very juiced 6.5 to the over. I found a 7 earlier on one of my offshores was plus 105, and actually just found 7 on Caesars at minus 105. So it definitely looks like the books are gonna need the under here. And I don't like playing season win total unders, but getting under, man, at a plus money might be some value there too. You can get under 6.5 at plus 145 most places.
Their conference schedule is actually pretty doable, but I mean they got to go to Miami of Florida for the first game, and I think that team, the Hurricanes, are gonna be improved this year. Then they got to go to Cincinnati, which we talked about Cincy last week. I don't think they're going to be as good, but I mean that should definitely be a game that Cincy wins. They get Delaware State and UMass the other 2 games, so they should start 2-2. Go to Kent State, they should be 3-2. They get Bowling Green at home. Which is
not a gimme by any means.
Not a gimme at all. Then they got at Western Michigan.
Should be a win.
So we're talking like 5-3 right now. Toledo at home. That's and it's their homecoming game. God damn, the more I look at this, dude, the more I think that this goes over. Their toughest conference games is at Ohio and at Ball State. Every other team they get at home. They get Toledo at home. They get Buffalo at home. Bowling Green at home. And this defense, they basically returned their entire defense that led the MAC last year. They returned all 4 starting defensive linemen, and they held opponents to 3.9 yards per carry last year, 136 total rush yards total. They returned 3 guys with starting experience in the linebacking unit, and they only lose 1 DB.
Yeah, I'm not as high as maybe some on them.
I just don't know about their offense, dude. Like, they just can't score, bro.
Yep.
Their offense, they only how much?
They were 11th last year in the MAC out of 12 schools in total offense.
They only scored 20 points per game, dude. Like,
yeah, they averaged 305 yards a game for the whole season, which is 11th in the conference.
And they lose their top wide receiver. They lose 3 starting offensive linemen. I can't get there on the over, man. I can't.
Me neither.
I cannot. Are we kind of in the same spot? Irv? You asleep, bro? What are you doing?
No, I'm looking at their schedule. And like I said, man, it's the MAC, man. We're not going to know nothing about this conference until probably mid-October, just to be honest.
Nah, we won't even know.
Just that Akron is winning 4 games this year. That's all I know.
I think I definitely like the over for Akron, but man, Miami of Ohio.
Damn, Jamaica lost 3-0, bro. What the hell?
Yeah.
I'll just say this, Irv. and I'd love to get your opinion and Jordan's opinion, but like I just feel like there is no, if you take Toledo out of it, which I know Toledo is the clear cut favorite. It's kind of like Western Kentucky
Ohio
and
too. I
Conference
feel like
USA.
AK. I feel like Ohio and Toledo are head to head though.
Okay, so you take those two out though. There's no clear cut like third, fourth, fifth team in the conference. I don't think. Like I think this conference could win. There could be so many 5-7 teams or 6-6 teams or whatever have you that on a week to week basis they'll be value betting certain teams or backing certain teams, especially underdogs. But like I said, if you're just a prototypical spot better, which you can do a lot in the SEC, the Big 12, some of these bigger conferences, man, you do not need to be betting the MAC at all, man, because betting spots in the MAC will have you wanting to beat your head through your laptop.
Yeah, you're right. All right, let's move on to Eastern Michigan. So now we're up to the upper echelon of win totals here. So Eastern Michigan, 7.5 wins. What do you guys
I think
think?
you need to take this one, Jordan, because you're kind of high on Eastern Michigan.
I wouldn't say I'm high on Eastern Michigan. I just think Chris Creighton's done a great job at Eastern Michigan. He's turned this program around. This is a program that didn't win the MAC since 1960s, right? This is a program that just used to losing. Now they're starting to be a lot better. They lose Taylor Powell, who threw for over 2,200 yards last year, but they do return Austin Smith, who started 4 games last year. They return Samson Evans, who rushed for 1,200 yards last year and 15 touchdowns, and Jalen Jackson, who rushed for 425. So they return their top 2 rushers from last year. They do lose 3 of their top 4 receivers, but they return Tanner Nee, who was their leading receiver and third-team All-MAC. They lose their best offensive lineman in but they do, and their career starts go from 117 to 58. So they're only returning 2 starters on their offensive line, which I think is atrocious. They also lose probably their best defensive player in program history in Jose Ramirez, who was second-team All-American last year. Not just All-MAC, he was an All-American, and he's gone. So I think this team is, brother, sorry to say, I don't think this team is going to be as good as last year. I think they had a great year last year. Irv and I were on San Jose State in that bowl game last year, and they just fucking ran all over them, dude. That shit was disgusting. But
I think I was on San Jose State now that I remember that. Yeah. That was like a weekday game, bowl game that I think I just wanted to like blow everything up at work.
Yeah, it was the Idaho Potato Bowl, man, and San Jose State just they forgot to show up, man.
Yeah, they didn't eat their potatoes that day.
Oh,
Yeah,
something too, Irv, and then you can take over this one. The only thing is, man, they open up against Howard at home. That should be a slam dunk win. They get UMass at home, slam dunk win. A winnable game against Minnesota, a winnable game against Jacksonville State.
Minnesota's gonna be better this year, AK.
Yeah, I agree. But even if they come out of that 3-1, right? I don't know. I just feel like that's a 3-1 team after non-conference schedules.
They kind of got murderers row in conference, dude. They have to go at Central Michigan, at Northern Illinois, at Toledo, at Buffalo.
Yep.
So they got.
It's tough. I do think you're right though, Jordan. I think there's a ton of regression here. I love how you brought up that they hadn't been in a bowl in so many years. Do you guys remember who the last good Eastern Michigan quarterback was before like this run of the last 10 years or so?
Nah, who was it?
Little trivia question. Charlie Batch.
Oh, God.
damn.
That's a long ass fucking time ago.
That's a long time ago.
Yep. But anyways, man, I think Jordan, I think you nailed it, man. I think there's definitely some aggression here. I would not be getting to the window on a play here for their season win total. What about you, Irv?
Like you said, that beginning of the season they can start off 3-1, but the second half of their schedule they can only win 2 games. And that could be Kent State and Akron because maybe Western Michigan. The rest of these games are complete toss-ups and teams that we think should be improved, so they might come down to 1 score or less. Ball State, Central Michigan, NIU, they on the road against them. They at Toledo, at Buffalo.
Irv, let me tell you something. about I love what you just said about Eastern Michigan too, about the layup win against Akron, because here we go. They've got to go to Toledo the week before, right? Going to be a tough game. They come back home against Akron, knowing they got to turn around and go to Buffalo, who we kind of all agreed it's going to be better next year. You talk about a flat spot if there is ever one.
Yeah, that's definitely a trap game.
Yep,
AK's
100%.
trying so hard to find some W's for Akron, dude.
I believe in Joe Moorhead. They going over that 2.5, 3, what, 3 or 3.5?
3.5. 3.5. If it was 2.5, that's easy money.
They getting at least 4,
3.5,
5.
and actually it's 4 a lot of places now. Just by the way,
Plus money though.
yeah, right, or even around even money. That's what you said. Circa had it at, right? 4 and even money.
Even.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, so we kind of all agree on Eastern Michigan. We definitely expect them to take a step back here this year. All right, let's move into the Ohio Bobcats, who I think have the best quarterback in this conference by far.
They do.
Hey, Jordan, to finish your point, to just knock it home, this opened 7.5, and you know how we've been seeing so many win totals go up that we're on the over. When this is starting to pop 7 a lot of places, by the way. So the under is getting hammered.
Damn, we should take the under right now.
Yep,
That
it is
actually-
getting under is getting hammered. 7.5 at MGM, even money. But then you go look at like FanDuel. FanDuel's got it off the board right now. DraftKings is already under 7 at -105. Caesars at under 7 now. So it's the under's getting hammered.
I like that under 7.5, bro. That might honestly be my best bet for this conference. All right, Ohio Bobcats. Tim Albin, third year here, 10-4 last year. Went into the Arizona Bowl, won the Arizona Bowl as well against Wyoming. Curtis Rourke, first team All MAC last year. Or was he first team or second team? No, he was MAC Offensive Player of the Year, first team All MAC. Hands down the best quarterback in this conference, in my opinion.
If he's healthy.
Daquan Finn is up there as well, which we're going to talk about next. But what's your guys' thoughts on Ohio returning 9 starters on offense, fellas?
It's coming back from ACL injury, man. We got to see.
I mean, even
yeah,
the
that's
backup
one
was
question
good.
mark. I think the sky's the limit in the MAC for this offense. If Rourke is anything like his normal self, they could be on a collision course with our boy Toledo.
Gosh, it feels like there's been a Rourke at quarterback for Ohio since like I was in high school.
They also have a pretty tough schedule too. They open at San Diego State, then they get Long Island. They should win that. Then they got to go at FAU, which I'm very high on. I think FAU probably wins that game. So we're talking they could very well start. They could very well start this season 1-2, right? Then
I think FAU wins that game. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they go Iowa State, so 2-2 at Bowling Green, Kent State at NIU, Western Michigan, Miami at home, at Buffalo, CMU at home, at Akron.
They avoid Toledo though, so that's good.
They do dodge Toledo. Well, they're in the opposite.
Yeah, they avoid the crossover. Yeah.
And the over under is what, 8 or 7.5?
7.5.
7.5 juice to the over, and it has not moved. It's basically been there ever since it opened. About the same, about -120, -125 to the over.
Honestly, Iowa State is going to be a tough game, even though they do got it at home. But Matt Campbell is going to have his team ready to play.
He is.
Excuse me. Kent State, Bowling Green, NIU, Western Michigan, Miami of Ohio.
Bro, I see like 5 or 6 L's on here.
I see it more like 3 or 4, maybe.
3 or 4.
Jordan, I would love for that situation to happen because then they just won't care at the end of the season against Akron. It's another win.
I think they beat Kent State. I think
Yeah.
NIU on the road could be tricky.
Yeah.
And it's in October.
They should beat Western Michigan at home.
Beat Western Michigan, beat Miami. On the road against Buffalo, going to be tough. I think they beat Central Michigan.
So you
They
counted
probably beat FIU.
7 W's, bro. And you saying
Yeah, I think honestly, because San Diego State quarterback position is a huge wild card, and I get there on the road against them, but
nah,
The
San Diego
worst-
I
State-
will say that
Too
line
good.
screams Ohio, by the way. I looked at
Yeah.
that line earlier, and it's
Rourke is Rourke. I think they could beat San Diego State on the road.
They're not going to the Snapdragon and beating San Diego State.
FAU, I gotta
Especially
see
if Rourke isn't playing, bro.
I think Rourke might be he's towards ACL and what?
Into last year.
Into last year?
He did.
He might be on schedule, but they shouldn't rush him. If he's not 100% clear, don't rush him back to play. But
So that line, Jordan, to your point, that Ohio at San Diego State game, Ohio's getting 3.5 on the road against San Diego State.
Well, Jalen Maiden is starting for San Diego State this year. He's a former safety.
If he looks anything like he did in that bowl game, pack his ass.
Hold on. Jalen Maiden was a safety that they transitioned to quarterback in the middle of the year. And he actually looked good. You know what I mean? Like now he's got a whole.
I think his first start last year was against Hawaii, if I remember.
And he lit him the fuck up. Or actually, they almost lost to Hawaii, but yeah, second half he lit him up.
Second half, all right. Yeah, he struggled in the first half. Yep.
But we're talking about a guy that didn't have any practice as a quarterback until like the middle of the year. Now he's got a whole off season.
He had plenty of practice for that bowl game.
He wasn't bad during the bowl game. I mean, he wasn't good, but.
Didn't he throw like 2 or 3 picks?
Yeah, I mean he's
So how is that not bad?
Dude, trust me, Jalen Maiden is nice, bro.
We'll see.
Ohio,
FAU, I gotta see it to believe it. I still think that their head coach Tom Herman is overrated as shit.
FAU's dog walking Ohio at FAU. We could put money on that too, Irv, if you want to.
We'll see. If my boy Rourke is healthy, he'll have it. I'm
telling you right now, Ohio not beating San Diego State in San Diego.
If Mickey Rourke is healthy, we're gonna see how that goes.
Oh God, here we go.
I'm gonna call him Mickey Rourke.
God, between him and his brother, man, it just feels like there's been a Rourke there since like it's fucking 2005.
His brother was a quarterback there before.
Yeah, you don't remember?
Shit. I remember the Rourke. I didn't even put the 2 and 2 together. I just thought it was.
I'm pretty sure his brother still plays in the CFL. I think. Don't quote me on that though.
I was honestly though, AK. I was shocked that like a Power 5 team didn't come and snatch Rourke.
Yeah,
I was
and probably would have had he didn't get hurt last year.
That's probably a good point. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, his brother's name is Nathan Rourke, and yes, I'm right. He still plays in the Canadian Football League. I just looked it up.
That's crazy.
Who he play for?
Yes, and Nathan Rourke was his brother. Yep.
Is he a starter?
Yeah, he's a starting quarterback in the CFL. Yep.
Nice. All right, let's move on to our next team. Toledo.
I don't follow the CFL for shit, by the way, but apparently he plays for the BC Lions, which I would have never been able to tell you that had I not looked it up.
I didn't even know that there was a BC Lions.
Me, to be honest, me neither.
I know there's the Calgary Stampede. I know that much. That's the only team
and
I
then
know.
the what is it, the Toronto
Argonauts?
Yeah.
All right, the Toledo Rockets.
Toronto Argonauts, the Stampede, the Saskatchewan Rough Riders.
Damn, Irv, our CFL sharp over here.
Oh, hold on. I just thought of one. Isn't one of them the Tiger Cats? Because I always thought that was a funny ass name.
The Hamilton.
Yes, yeah.
Where's
Brandon Banks, a kid that used to run kickoffs back for Washington Redskins back in the day, who I used to be high on. I think he actually played at the Hamilton Tiger Cats, so I remember.
Where's Hamilton?
I have no idea.
Somewhere in Canada.
Yeah, you got the Alouettes, the Tiger Cats.
Oh yeah, the Alouettes. Yeah, I forgot about
Blue
them.
Bombers.
So they saw the Eskimos or the Igloos or whatever their name is.
Stampede.
Irv, are you gonna start
and the Edmonton Elks.
Irv needs to start the CFL pod.
See,
Bro,
Irv will host the CFL.
You know how
pod.
you handicap CFL? You look at points for and points against. That's how you handicap the CFL.
It's like handicapping a high school football game.
Man. I seen one game, the over was like 48. The final score was 12-11.
Oh,
Good Lord.
Shit.
And hold on. This is the crazy thing about the CFL, and I'm not hating. I'm really not. I watched one CFL game that a sharp buddy of mine told me to take I can't remember the team. I'd be lying if I said I did, but told me to take X, Y, and Z. And I go to watch it, and they don't have fucking fourth down. They only have 3 downs.
They only got 3 downs.
I am so
That's-
over this. And
yeah, once I saw that, I
just,
cut that shit off. I'm
I
like,
immediately just wanted to like throw my remote out of the.
how
out
did
of
you
the
have
fucking
Warren
room.
Moon playing in this type of league? Like, what the fuck is happening?
Oh, so there's not even a fourth down. Like they don't
It's
even.
not a
punt?
fourth down, and then the field is 110 yards.
Hold on. So what
Yo.
happens if you don't make it on 3rd and 10 or
If
3rd?
you don't make it on 3rd and 10, either I think it's a turnover on downs, or you gotta most teams punt, but like depending on what side of the field you're on, a lot of teams go for it. So that's why
Yeah, I was just instantly over it, and I just like
so that's why
wanted
the
to get
games
back those
go
30 minutes of my life.
they games either go way over or way under. So that's
Yeah.
how those games go.
All right.
I definitely could have spent a lot more useful things doing those 30 minutes. Unfortunately, I did not.
Yeah.
Oh, great. They got the highlights of the Wings and Lynx game on here.
That's it. Oh, we're watching the same thing because I literally just saw that and I just wanted to like turn my TV off now.
That shit was terrible.
All right. Toledo Rockets win total at 8.5. Obviously, the class of the MAC, they should be. They returned Daquan Finn, phenomenal quarterback. 8 offensive starters, 8 defensive starters. What's your guys' thoughts here?
If this team don't win the MAC, it's a huge disappointment.
A huge disappointment, Irv says.
I mean, I think they've already played the season, and it just seems like Toledo and Ohio have already won it. So I don't even know why we're doing this podcast, like really, because they've already won it. But I mean, I'll be honest, man. Toledo's probably got the best quarterback in the MAC. Interesting thing about the MAC, no team has won it back to back since 2010, 2011, Northern Illinois. Toledo may be able to do that.
Toledo didn't win last year. Eastern Michigan beat them.
I thought they were conference champion last year. Are you sure?
Eastern Michigan won the conference championship. Oh no, hold on. Ohio, they did beat Ohio. My bad. They did win the MAC.
Yeah, they beat them at Detroit's field.
Yeah, they did win the MAC title.
But
Daquan, that's the game you were sweating out them to cover because I think they closed out. You got it at like 6.5, 6. And what's the name would have made that field goal at the end. They would have covered, but they missed it.
No, they closed -3 and they won 17-7.
Yeah, that's what it was. Okay, there we go.
So, anyways, my point is Daquan Finn. As I said earlier, I was watching DJ Irons highlights before our pod went on, so I could get very excited about talking about MAC football. I actually watched Daquan Finn highlights as well. Kid's pretty dynamic. I like him a lot. But once again, man, that's why they play the game. We never know. And kind of like I said about Western Kentucky, man, the Conference USA. Even though I'm very high on Western Kentucky, they still got to play the season. They still got to win. And sometimes it's harder said than done. I'm actually very excited about Toledo at Illinois week 1.
Yep. 100%.
Very excited for that game.
I think they could win that game.
I do too.
And what's the line on it right now? Do we have a line? Well, we do have.
Yeah, I had it up earlier. I was looking at it. Hold on, I'll pull it back up.
If they're anything more than a touchdown dog, easy bet Toledo.
See, some of these games, I don't know why, but like, have you guys been looking at some of these lines for week 1? It's like they put them up, but they've taken them down, some of them, for some reason. I guess because of injuries and things like that.
They do that pretty often, yeah.
I'm actually not seeing the line yet right now, boys.
Oh, shit. Well, if it's a touchdown or less, a touchdown or more, I'm taking Toledo all day. Easy. I like Toledo, man. They're returning a lot of starters. It's just, they're $1.70 favorite to win this conference. So,
Ohio's like $1.20 favorite, and then it's Toledo.
Nah, Toledo's the favorite, $1.70.
Ohio. I saw Ohio as low as +120 on some books earlier.
I've seen Ohio $2.70 at FanDuel, BetMGM $2.50, Caesars $2.10.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I must have seen them to win the division.
Oh, okay. Toledo $1.70, $1.75, $1.80, depending on where you shop.
Yeah, because Ohio's in the other division. Ohio's in the East. Yeah.
Toledo returns its top 5 rushers from last year, including Daquan Finn. They only lose their tight end Jamel Turner, who only had 378 yards, and Demir Blankmusier, who only had 512. So they're a much more experienced group going into last year. And they returned 7 of their top 10 receivers, including Jerwan Newton, second team All-MAC. They get Tyler Longback, who was out for the year last year on their offensive line, and they add in a transfer from Rutgers, who I'm not going to try to mention his last name, so I'm going to butcher it as well. And they returned Nick Rossi, first team All-MAC as well. So they got a lot of talent coming back on their offensive line. Biggest loss is their defense, where they lose first team All-MAC to Juwan Johnson and second team All-MAC Jamal Hines on their defensive line. They do return 4 with starting experience there, so they are pretty deep. They return their top 2 linebackers in Dallas Gant, who is first team All-MAC, and Nate Bauer, who is second team All-MAC, so that's a plus. And then they return third team All-American corner, not All-MAC, All-American corner, Quinion Mitchell. And they return all 4 starters in their secondary, so they do have a good.
Hey, Jordan, I found on an offshore Toledo +10 against Illinois.
+10. Oh,
yep.
We're hammering, dude. Bro, what the fuck? Illinois is not going to be anywhere near as good as they were last year. Toledo's a good ball club. I like Toledo.
Yeah, I agree.
Man. 8.5 is it's tough, but I mean, like, their schedule's pretty easy, man. They go at Illinois, then they get Texas Southern, San Jose State, Western Michigan. They have 4 home games in a row. Texas Southern, San Jose State, Western Michigan, Northern Illinois. I mean, they could.
Here's the thing, Jordan. They could beat Illinois, Texas Southern, San Jose State, Western Michigan, Northern Illinois, UMass, Boston. They could easily be 7-0 going in that showdown with Miami.
Yep. Easy. And then they get Buffalo at home, Eastern Michigan at home. Oh, my God, dude.
And they don't have to play the Akron Zips.
I'm actually talking myself into this over 8.5. Holy shit.
And hey, Jordan, for anybody listening out there, man, make sure you guys shop that around because it is 9 some places, but it's still plenty of 8.5s left out there.
What is it? What's the VIG? On the 8.5s, on the 8.5s.
Let me try to find you a best line real quick while we're looking.
Like -140, -145?
I think it's -145. It was the best one I saw earlier, but I'll have you an answer in just a second.
If I can get 9.
I like Toledo, though, man. I do. I don't know how much value's there. So, okay. So yeah, Jordan. So this is another one, man. It's just all over the place. There's still some 8.5s out there, like -115, -120. But then you look over at DraftKings, and they've got 9 at -120.
9?
So
-120?
Yeah. Yep.
What the fuck?
MGM's got 8.5 at the same thing, though. So once again, man, with these futures, we talked about it, I think week 1 of our show, man, shop these